Welcome to Highly Sensitive, Happily Married, the podcast that teaches you to not only have an easier marriage as a sensitive woman, but to have one that feels more amazing by the day. Where you'll hear relatable stories, love advice that works, and coaching on how to have a marriage where feeling upset and disconnected is a thing of the past, and where instead a sense of loving connection and even fun and lightness is the norm. I'm Hannah Brooks, highly sensitive person, love expert, and marriage coach, and I'm so happy to be on this journey with you. Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 119. I am recording this the day after Mother's Day. I think it was the sweetest Mother's Day I have ever had. Everyone was just really loving, and it was just such a joy to be with all of my boys, my family of boys and men, and to just feel so loved by them. And I have really found that the more that I grow, the more that I do my work on my nervous system, on my mental, emotional well-being, the more I grow my capacity to relate to my family and myself with love and patience and all the good things, the more I truly just love and enjoy being with them. And I see them loving and enjoying being with me. It's so crazy. I have an 18-year-old and he loves hanging out with me, and he's like a cool dude, But, we just all love being together. So anyway, I'm just feeling really grateful, and I really want the same for you. So today we are going to talk about another thing that's going to help with all of that. We're going to talk about the different levels and types of investing in your marriage for lasting happiness and all the good things in your marriage and in your family life. And what I mean by investing is not just spending money. So be clear here. What I mean is spending time and energy and attention, right? These are forms of investment. These are very essential ones for your relationship. And the truth is we all have different levels of resources for these different types of investments, right? Some of us do have more money. Some of us have more bandwidth or energy. Some have more time, and some have less of these things, right? So today I want to help you understand why investing in one or all of these ways is really critical to the relationship you want, and help you figure out what type or level of investing is for you and how you can make the most change and bring the most goodness into your relational life with the resources you have, whichever they are. So we're going to be talking about them all and how you can use me and my teachings and coaching to your relationship's highest benefit with whatever kinds of investment you have the resources for right now. And I want to say that this episode is going to help everyone move the needle a little or a lot on making your marriage the loving one you want, whether you use my teachings and approach or someone else's. And this episode is going to help those of you who are considering joining my in-depth marriage coaching program, Treasured. It's going to help you decide and figure out if now is the time to enroll in it, because the doors close in a few days, or if you should just use my free resources instead for now, including the upcoming free workshop, 3 Invisible Steps to Deeper Love Than Ever Between You and Your Significant Other. That's happening on Saturday the 20th. I made a mistake in the last podcast episode. It's not the 19th, it's Saturday the 20th at noon Eastern Time. In either case, the links to both Treasured and this workshop are in the show notes or at www.lifeisworthloving.com. So definitely join me in one or both of these amazing opportunities. All right, so let's first talk about why investing is so key. Now, I have the insider view, right? I get the behind the scenes view of what's going on in a lot of people's marriages. And I have seen too many marriages needlessly fall apart or needlessly be on their way to falling apart And too many women wait until their relationship is pretty much broken before they decide it's worth really focusing in on it. Like waiting until it's way harder to revive and heal. And this was me. So I've also experienced this from the inside. And so I'm going to share from love and hope that doesn't happen to you, a hard truth, a truth I wish I had taken more to heart, and I wish more women took to heart, which is that not investing in our marriages is how we break them. Not giving them our devoted, purposeful attention in an ongoing way is how we break them. It's how we end up unhappy or stuck feeling or wondering if this is all we have to look forward to for the rest of our lives. The truth is, to have a marriage you really love, or even you just feel good in, you need to invest in it. It's critical too. And to be clear again, by investing, I don't just mean financially. I do mean that, but I also mean time, investment of your time, investment of your energy and your attention, also determination or like real commitment or grit, right? These are also forms of investment. To say it in a slightly different way, investing means allocating the resources of your time and energy and money and brain space to it, like you do with other things that matter in your life. So I want to ask you now, if you're really honest with yourself, are you doing that? Are you investing regularly? Are you investing every day these resources? And I don't just mean passively listening to podcasts or reading about how to have a loving relationship. What I mean is proactively practicing and engaging with what you learn from those things. Like with your brain, with your energy, with your attention. And really be honest with yourself. And if the answer is no, and you know your unhappiness in your relationship is taking a toll on you, or you just really want a relationship that feels great to you, like that's really, truly important to you, I highly recommend investing more. I love that you're here listening to this podcast. But if you aren't seeing real positive change, it's because you're likely not investing deeply enough with the resources that you have, and or getting what's stopping you out of the way from doing so, right? Because sometimes that's all it is there's things like we have the resources or we could have the resources, but there are things that kind of stop us from using them or applying them. So if you find that you probably aren't investing as much as I'm recommending in these different forms, I want you to know, very normal. And I have some really strong feelings about this. Because I think one of the biggest reasons there are so many marriages in trouble and so much unhappiness in our relationships, and the divorce rate is sky high, it's not because we as humans don't understand what makes great marriages. Like there's a bunch of info out there about that, right? But rather, there is this subtle but pervasive messaging we all get that says happiness in life and love should just happen. Like it's an experience that should just fall into our laps, right? Like it shouldn't take much to be happy and to be well with our significant other and to feel so close and loving and all the good things, right? In other words, as women and as a society, we've been taught it's great to invest in things and big events, such as the wedding. Notice that? We all spend our money on the wedding. And it's even okay to invest in the large expense of divorce, right? But this is the messaging we've picked up. It's unnecessary or even frivolous to invest in the intangible things that actually make us truly happy, like emotional and relationship skills, like learning how to relate in the best ways so you have the most loving marriage. How crazy is that that's like been deprioritized and almost stigmatized? I mean, I remember when I was willing to spend money on my marriage and on the divorce, but not on improving our relationship so we didn't have to get divorced. And I see this all the time because this is the messaging we pick up. So it's not your fault if this is happening to you, but it is fascinating to witness. And also, when you think about it, pretty crazy, right? What's also interesting is that people spend money on all sorts of things that they think will bring them happiness. For example, paying thousands of extra for that higher end vehicle with like a couple special fancy features. Or wine. I know people who have invested like multiple thousand, like around $10,000 a year in alcohol because they want to feel a certain way. We also invest in other things that matter to us, right? Like our kids, our jobs, right? The specific clothing we think we need to wear to our work to gain respect, right? So we invest in these things that feel important to us with our money, with our time, with our attention, right? But so many of us don't do this when it comes to our happiness and love and relationships with the people we most care about or with whom we live. No, my sensitive friend, I know for you, or I'm guessing for you, that those things, the happiness and love and the relationships with the people that matter most in your life, that really matters to you, right? Isn't that deep down as important or even more important than some of those other things that you invest your time and energy and money into? I know when I slow people down when we're talking about what matters to them on consults, they always are like, yes, this is actually one of the most, very most, if not the most important thing in their lives. The quality of their well-being, the quality of their relationship with their person, with their spouse. And yet they aren't prioritizing it with their resources. Again, it's a cultural thing. And I think the craziest thing about this cultural messaging that we all receive and most of us tend to live out or play out is that because it tells us it's some sort of luxury to invest our resources into our love lives, we don't invest in them. And so they end up hurting, getting harder and harder and slowly crumbling. And many people end up having an awful experience in a relationship that's actually full of loving potential. And they might even give up on that relationship entirely before they've tapped into that potential. This does happen all the time. In fact, I'd say that most relationships, or at least marriages that end, this is what's happening. Because of these ridiculous ideas that we should just naturally be good at relationships and happiness in general, and that it's extravagant or luxurious to invest in this most essential, beautiful thing. So, I say that it is high time to normalize investing in our marriage's well-being beyond the wedding and investing in our emotional well-being, especially as sensitive women who feel so deeply and are so affected by how their relationship is going and who benefit so incredibly deeply when their relationships. But let me just summarize all of this to say, make sure you're investing in your marriage and in the love you want with the resources you have available to you. If a loving, connected, supportive, happy relationship and home and family life really matter to you. All right, let's talk now about the different levels and types of investing in your marriage for real change and lasting happiness. The truth is that different levels of investing lead to different levels of results. And so obviously, if you can come up with the resources of your energy and attention, your time, and or your money to invest in your relationship's future, that's going to be the best recipe for the most full, permanent, deep, joyful changes, right? And ever deepening love in your marriage. And specifically, a combination of one-on-one and group coaching, the way we do in Treasured, and all the learning that takes place within that container is the best recipe, I believe, for highly sensitive women to make those permanent, deep, beautiful changes. I believe this completely, and I see proof of it every day in my clients. But honestly, at this moment in time, that level of investment might not be right for you because some of us truly don't have money for that. For some of us, the reality is that just putting food on the table and having a roof over our heads is already hard enough financially. So if you're barely paying for your home and your food, it might not be the best time to invest financially in your marriage. Or you may already be in over your head with a specific thing that maybe is mattering more to you than making your marriage a happy one right now. For example, maybe caring for a dying parent or an ill child, or you're in graduate school while also holding down a full-time job, right? So sometimes we just don't have the resource of time or the bandwidth. And that's also an appropriate time to not invest much in your marriage. But this should really never be too long if you want a happy or even decent marriage. But in almost all cases, most of you listening, you do have at least one of these resources. Again, time, money, attention, bandwidth. And in most cases, you can actually get access to all of them if you get a little creative or resourceful. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But right now, let's talk about how you can invest with what you do have, whether it's time or energy, money or attention. What is in reality, if you're being honest with yourself, best for you. And we're going to cover a little bit of the reality of who can do this and what results are likely with these different levels of investing in your marriage. My different levels of support are my free things like my emails, my Instagram posts, my free communication guide, the free podcast that you're listening to right now, live events such as my challenges or my workshops. They have been free in the past and still are. They may be a small fee for them in the future. The next level is my group coaching program. And then the next level is adding in a small amount of one-on-one coaching to that group program. Next level is adding more one-on-one coaching to that program. And the last highest level of investment of time, energy, and money is adding in coaching for you and your partner after you've mastered the skills and made a lot of change in yourself from the group and one-on-one coaching. So let's talk about these free things and whether just utilizing them is right for you with the levels of investment, with the resources you have to invest in your marriage. So I share a lot in my podcast and in my emails and my free trainings and all sorts of things, right? All my free stuff, I share a lot. I'm very generous with my teachings. And for the people who are very committed to using these things, they can make huge changes by using my free material. And I actually hear from people who are listening to the podcast or getting my emails. I hear from them fairly regularly saying things like, your podcast has changed my life. So that is definitely possible. But I want to be honest with you that this is really for the people who are truly self-motivated and determined. It is possible to use these resources to make huge changes, but you've got to be honest with yourself as to whether or not you are someone who has the chutzpah. And the truth is that most people don't, simply because we've got other things that distract us, that pull our attention away. And I'm honestly one of these people. Like, without something formal, it's much harder for me to create real changes. If I just try to go and do it on my own, 7,000 times harder or just impossible. I've got a lot of determination and grit. And honestly, even if you do have a lot of chutzpah, there are some things that the podcast and my emails truly don't get into. And they don't go nearly as in depth for some of you. And I'll share a little bit more on that in a minute. So if you are trying to use my free resources to make your marriage the one you really want it to be, it's going to take more of an investment of time because there's going to be a lot more trial and error than if you got my direct or my eyes and ears on you and your relationship. It's going to take more chutzpah, more bandwidth, more being able to naturally motivate and stay super dedicated on your own. It's going to take more resolve to handle setbacks. It's going to take more natural self-trust and belief, more self-discipline, more self-confidence. And you can do it if you have all those things, or you know how to build all those things or tap into all those things. Now, again, it can be tempting to think, oh, I can do it, I'm determined. But oftentimes when it comes down to it, we really don't as humans. Maybe we can, but we don't. It's a lot harder when we don't, because of our human psychology, when we don't have the support. We oftentimes will get distracted or frustrated or confused and kind of fall off the wagon. So it really truly is harder for a normal, highly sensitive person to create and sustain the changes they want in their marriages and in their emotional life this way. It's kind of like trying to learn French from a textbook without a teacher or a class to support you. You can learn some, but it's very different than actually immersing yourself in the country where everyone actually speaks French and speaking French with people regularly, right? People do learn that way, but not as many people, and usually not as thoroughly. So I want to share a little bit about what to expect, what results to expect by using my free resources. So honestly, it's very individual. I can't predict with any real accuracy what you'll be able to accomplish, what changes you'll be able to accomplish and sustain by using my free resources. Most likely, you'll at least get some intellectual understanding, some knowledge, most likely a sense of hope, some more inspiration that a good marriage or even an amazing marriage is possible. You'll probably develop a little bit more self-awareness. The most common result I hear from people thanking me for my free stuff is that they feel relief, that they understand their sensitivity more. They feel more validation, that they're okay, that they're normal. And I love this. I think this is wonderful. And that really does impact our relationships. I also hear that the podcast helps them feel like things are less heavy and more enjoyable. People feel more empowered and stop expecting their partner to be the one to make the changes or totally change. Again, feel empowered to make changes themselves. In other words, a lot of it feels like a foundation to making the big shifts, like preparation, like important preparation to being able to really transform all the things they're becoming aware of and bring them to life in their marriages. And some people really are, again, able to make real, true change. You may be one of those people. You're the only one that will know. But what I oftentimes, when clients come to me who've been listening to the podcast and on my email list for years, they definitely have more like intellectual understanding of what I'm talking about. But when we start actually using some of these understandings and I teach them and we go more in depth on with the tools and the coaching work, it's suddenly like light bulbs are going off and real deep shifts start really happening. So if after listening to the rest of this podcast, which may surprise you, you still feel like or know that my free resources are the way to go for you, here's how to make the most of them. Don't just listen. Make sure you apply what I teach. Answer all the questions I ask. Try out the approaches and strategies I suggest, especially the ones that address your mind, your thoughts, and your feelings. And don't just try them once, try them many times. And once you've done that a lot, you can evaluate and decide which things are working and what's not working and focus on the things that are working best, right? And tweak and adjust. And if you find that this isn't getting you where you want to be in your marriage, seriously consider working with me in a deeper way. And fun news, I am going to be making a free guide to help you navigate the podcast. And this is especially for those of you who really, really do not have the resources to invest financially in your marriage right now. I'm excited to be sharing that with you sometime in the next few months. And of course, you've got the free upcoming workshop. Go sign up for that right now. And of course, I'm going to keep offering you the podcast, the emails, and some very low investment workshops in the future. Because no matter your financial situation, I want you to have the love you want. Let's now look at how working directly with me, or it doesn't have to be me, but with someone who's very skilled as a coach or counselor in helping people have amazing, wonderful marriages, is different and how that's the best way to make true lasting change for most people. In other words, what I mean is investing with time, energy, and money. One of the biggest things is that when we pay, human psychology is such that we value money. And so when we pay attention. It like harnesses our focus and the power of our brain, the power of our energy and bandwidth and time. It's like, oh, I paid money for this. I'm going to pay attention now. I'm going to focus on this. This matters. I've found that to be true with my clients. It sharpens their attention, puts that full chutzpah behind their focus and work. This is not true for every single person, but for the majority of us, it is true. And when we pay that deep attention and really put ourselves deeply into creating change, that's when we're really successful at it. And when you're investing your money, you're also getting the deepest level of support and learning. In my program, Treasured, it goes way deeper. And it's organized in a step-by-step fashion, designed to take you from step A to step B to step C, instead of trying or like skipping around like my podcast does, or what some of us do when we're on our own is try to skip from A to Z. And that doesn't usually work so well. The program of Treasured is a very intentional system. And in it, I teach you the tools in depth, not just in passing, and you build the skills in layers, mastering the basics before moving on to more advanced things. So you really can grow in a natural, progressive way that you can sustain the changes. And as a couple of clients mentioned in my recent bonus podcast episode called In HSP Voices, my clients' real relationship results. Working with a coach live is really the only way you will be able to see certain things about yourself, because we all have blind spots, things we don't see in ourselves without someone else showing us. And usually we're only willing to see those things when it comes from a loving person who is there specifically to support you into having what you want. Seeing those things and then shifting them is how we get over things that hold us back from relating in the ways that garner the most loving intimacy with our person. And I thought it would be useful for you to hear this directly from a couple of my clients' mouths who shared themselves more about all this. So here's Emma and Luann.
Being able to just troubleshoot and bounce ideas off of Hannah and the other folks in the group, being able to have some insight and input on what I might not be seeing, what might be in a spot of invisibility for me, has really helped me more deeply than I would have been able to just passively consuming content. The thing that has made Treasured so worth the investment of time and financial resources is being able to deepen the lessons and the learning that Hannah makes freely available with relationship to the other people in the program, relationship to Hannah directly, and just relationship to the process as it accompanies your life over the course of a pretty lengthy 6-month period. It's the act of making that commitment and putting in that investment that helps keep your feet to the fire around making change. And let's be honest, change is uncomfortable, and healing even more so. These are not easy things to do. And all of us need support and accountability support when we're trying to do things differently and hold ourselves accountable for making real change. When you make an investment in a program like this, you're helping yourself show up fully to the change work that you want to do. And that's invaluable.
Coaching is just, it's so unique because you would help guide me through exact specific things that were going on in my life at the given time.
Yes.
And you helped me learn things about myself that I didn't even realize on my own. You would really delve deep into, some of my lifelong patterns that I've had and help me break through them.
The other really important thing about the difference between investing in a more formal program or process like Treasured is that you've got to understand the way that the brain changes is through repetition. So our habits are deeply grooved patterns in our brain, which means they are second nature. They're the quickest response, the quickest route our brain can take. But a lot of our habits and patterns in our relationships are what keep our marriage feeling harder. And so breaking those patterns and habits and creating new ones is the ticket to changing your relationship at its heart in the best of ways. And that requires a lot of repetition, hearing things over and over and trying new things over and over again. It's very easy to fail at creating these new patterns. And that's why very few people manage to do it when they're just listening to a podcast or reading about ways of doing things differently. Whereas they are successful at it when they have a coach who's working with them directly and they're surrounded by other people who are doing the same things. That really makes it so much easier because you're getting the support and the repetition from lots of directions over and over again, which allows your brain to actually develop those new neural pathways, those new patterns. So this is a bit of neuroscience here. Being around others who are immersed in the same work, who are speaking that language and reminding you of it over and over, who are giving you motivation and help you stay accountable, that is how we really make lasting change at the core. And that's why it lasts and keeps making your marriage better and better, because it's not superficial change. It's core, deep, real, lasting change. So this is one of the huge reasons why I've created Treasured and use the format that I use. It gets you proactively practicing what you're learning, failing and trying again, ironing out the kinks, getting your questions answered, and then readjusting. And there's someone there to see your blind spots, what you can't see that's going on for you, that's keeping you from the relationship you want or keeping you unhappy in your relationship. So if you're someone who is resourceful and you're able to pay your basic living expenses, but you might just be hesitant to spend money on yourself because our world doesn't encourage it or has told you don't deserve to spend that on yourself and your happiness as a woman, or that there should be no need to, or you're just feeling like nervous about it or like it feels irresponsible for some reason. I get it. And those are not the best reasons to not invest at a higher level, because it's letting that system, the system we live in, that produced the super high divorce rate and an epidemic of unhappiness in marriage, determine your well-being in your marriage for you. I have been there. There's no shame in it. But I highly recommend seriously considering getting personalized support in a coaching program like Treasured. And we'll talk about how you can figure out coming up with the investment for Treasured or a program like Treasured in just a minute. But let's do a quick review about the levels of investment you actually have available to you and what would be the best approach to shifting things in your relationship with those resources, those levels of investment that you actually have access to. So if you have a wee bit of time and energy but are barely putting food on the table, your best option would probably be listening to the podcasts and doing my free trainings and really holding yourself to doing what I suggest, not just listening, right? Practicing, applying, answering the questions I asked, etc. And more than once, ongoingly, regularly. Now, if you have some money but are completely 100% flat out of time or energy for your marriage, you may want to make a plan to get help or get through this as quickly as possible. So you can join a program sometime not too far off, but truly supports you to more well-being and real love, happiness. In other words, being flat out of time or energy for your marriage should really only ever be a temporary thing. It should never be chronic. It's become kind of chronic. If it doesn't seem so temporary, I really recommend figuring out how to change things in your life, because it's a recipe. Like being completely out of time and energy for your well-being and your marriage is a total recipe for complete misery in the long term. So figuring out how to free up time and energy should be the first priority. And by the way, it doesn't need to be a lot of time, an hour, 2 a week, 3 a week, maybe, so that you can put that resource of time and energy into this most important thing, your happiness in love. Which brings me to the situation for most of you, honestly, who are listening right now, if you are really honest with yourselves. So if you are able to put food on the table and pay your basic bills, you probably want to push yourself to get resourceful and figure out how to create a bit of time, money, and energy to do a program like Treasured. I'll use Treasured as an example, although, again, I want you to find a program that resonates with you. And if it's Treasured for you, perfect, that's great. If it's something else, just imagine I'm talking about that. My goal, again, is to get the help you need to make your marriage the loving, joyful one that you deserve. So again, in most cases, you actually can get access to all the necessary types of investment if you get a little creative and resourceful. I have found, although it might be a little bit uncomfortable or take a little figuring out, most of us can come up with the time, with the energy and attention and the money for a program that will change the course of your life and marriage forever. Yes, it can take some devoted, purposeful resourcefulness, meaning choosing to figure it out. And it might feel a little nerve-wracking and uncomfortable because we're not used to, as women, putting our happiness first. It can take getting over the money blocks, the self-worth blocks that are keeping you from investing in your well-being and your marriage's future. And I'll tell you a little story here, a personal story that's parallel, which is that in building my business in the very beginning, I really did think I could figure it out and do it on my own using some teachers' free resources. I felt weird about trying to figure out coming up with the money for it. I didn't know if I was worth it. I didn't really have money set aside for it anyway. Like I'd have to kind of scrounge around and figure it out. So I did not invest in the program. I muddled through with the free stuff for a year or so. And I barely made a cent in my business that year. I finally decided to figure out the money for her paid program. And I invested in the program and it paid me back 100-fold fast. But here is the thing. Being able to actually make that choice and pay for that program required me to believe in what I wanted more than what I was afraid of not having, right? Which was not having that money in my account. I had to decide my dream of what I wanted was worth it. And of course it has been. It's that those decisions, getting to that place, believing in that enough, was what opened the door to having this amazing business that I love and being here right now with you. It has paid back way more than it cost. And my clients are always telling me the same thing. Making the decision to invest their money, their time, their energy in coaching with me meant they had to decide that they were worth it. What they wanted was worth figuring out how to get the money, how to make the time, was worth feeling a little bit of discomfort and nervousness that comes along with really going for something that they really want. And they tell me that the payback is ongoing and will be so for the rest of their lives now that they have the skills to not just keep their marriage alive with love and connection, but they have this whole new beautiful relationship with themselves that they can take anywhere and affects every aspect of their life. As for coming up with the money, there are so many ways to figure that out. I actually got a part-time job to do a program once. My clients get creative in all sorts of ways. But I want you to think about it this way. How much would you be willing to pay per day to feel loved and treasured and to feel in love with your partner and to feel like a loving, supportive team in life together, right? To feel really fulfilled in your marriage. Would you be willing to pay 2 dimes a day, 20 cents? I bet most of you would be willing to pay more than that. Well, more than that. Treasured and all the happiness that comes with it, that comes from it for the next 40 years costs only 20 cents a day. And if you're a little older and you're only going to be alive for the next 30 years, it's 27 cents a day. Is your happiness worth that much? If so, don't hesitate to join us. I also wanted to make sure you know that I do have 2 scholarship spots opening up now. This is only for people who truly do not have the funds for Treasured. If that's you, no shame at all. Our world is a crazy place that's very unfair economically. If you're interested in talking to me about the scholarship, email me at hannah@lifeisworthloving.com. So let's wrap this up. I know that you know this truth in your heart. The wedding, although lovely and fun, is not the most important thing to invest in when it comes to having a love that lasts with your partner. The most important thing to invest in is the actual quality of the relationship over the long term, because that's what makes us healthy and happy and truly supported for the long haul, and actually provides us financial and emotional and even physical well-being in a sustained long-term way. And there's research that has proven this. So the truth is, investing in your marriage's well-being is one of the most practical things you will ever do in your life. As one of my clients put it so eloquently, there is no material thing that I could give myself that's better than coaching with Hannah to make my marriage better. And this is the attitude that has allowed her and my other clients to feel so much more love and connection and attraction in their marriages, and to create so much more understanding and growth between themselves and their partners. Things that are going to last and even deepen as the years pass. So I am not here to tell you what decision to make about how you want to invest in your marriage and your happiness. You get to do that. Look at what really matters to you, what you most want, and what is the reality and not the fear of what you have or can figure out or come up with in terms of what you can invest into your marriage, whether that's money or time or energy or attention or some combination of all of them, as most of us can actually come up with. And then please use my teachings to bring your marriage alive with the love you want and deserve, and your family deserves. And if there's any way you can come up with all of these resources of time, energy, and money and spend that 20 cents a day on Treasured, as my client Sonia said, just do it. Because you and yours will thank you for the rest of your life. Doors to Treasured close Monday, the 22nd at midnight. So get your enrollment form in now. If you're not joining us for Treasured, invest in the way that works for you, and consider working towards enrolling in Treasured in the future. Be oh so well, my friend.